Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another proRevenge Reddit video. In our first story, a homeowners association member doesn't know the rules as well as he thinks. Let's jump right in. Obligatory on mobile, and while English is my first language, I suck at it. This story primarily takes place between me and a crappy neighbor who is a member of my community's homeowners association. Sorry if it's a bit long. As a bit of background, me and my 3 roommates moved into a housing community that is basically just a bunch of cookie-cutter townhomes. All of these homes have garages that open onto streets that wind through the community. This is important later, with your front door opening to a path on the other side of your house. There are also some free parking spots on the edge of the community where there are no houses. When we first moved in, we quickly found out that parking could be a bit of a pain during the day, especially when people had guests during the weekend. Now, my roommates and I admittedly have more cars than the average family. Because we usually have to commute for work, we each have one. We try to make parking easier by using the garage, but we all have tons of sporting equipment, so we can usually only get one car in the garage. When all the parking in all the free spots is full, we just park our cars right up against the garage and leave them there during the day or overnight. We'd seen other neighbors do it, and it still left ample room for people driving on the street to get by. Well, one day, crappy neighbor comes up while my roommates and I are in the garage organizing some stuff and tells us that we can't park there overnight as it's against community rules. Before we had a chance to respond, he added, "And if you do it again, I will personally make sure you're towed." His first comment was pretty reasonable. We just moved in and didn't know that rule. But his second comment really just made him sound like an ass and wasn't necessary. One of my roommates simply responded that we didn't know as we just moved in and we wouldn't park there overnight anymore. Well, crappy neighbor, clearly trying to assert his dominance, responded with, "Good. You better not, 'cause I'll be watching." Well, from then on, we did follow those rules. If we parked in front of our garage during the day, we would make sure to move it before we went to sleep. This worked out for a while until one fateful day. One of my roommates stopped by quickly after work to grab some dinner and clothes before heading to his girlfriend's. This was around 7 p.m., so he just parked up against the garage as it would be quicker than the parking spaces. Plus, it was early enough that he didn't think he'd get towed. Around 8 p.m., he went to head out and his car was gone. Guess who was there though? Crappy neighbor standing right outside. Immediately, he said to my roommates, "Told you you were going to get towed if you parked here again." Crappy neighbor and my roommate argued for a bit before my roommate came back inside and calls the car lot. Well, it ends up they're closed, so he'll have to get his car in the morning. The kicker? They're going to charge him an overnight fee. All in all, it comes out to $500, which isn't a small amount of money for us. This neighbor has been an ass to us since we moved in, and even though it wasn't my car that was towed, I took this personally. To make sure we didn't get towed again, we decided to read the community rules, and lo and behold, we found out that the street in front of the garage is actually considered a fire lane, and no one is supposed to park there at any point during the day. Between crappy neighbor treating us like crap and the fact that we could get him yelling at his wife every night, not a big detail to the story, but just wanted to say, to add to my point that this guy just sucked, I start to plan my revenge. Since quarantine started, I've been able to work from home, and my desk conveniently looks out onto the street between the houses. This means that I can clearly see crappy neighbor's garage. I start to take notice of when he parks his car out in front of his garage. For about 2 weeks, I noticed that he would come home around 1 p.m. and leave again at 2 p.m. On the 3rd week, I decided I would begin the revenge. On Monday, true to his schedule, he stopped by around 1. After about 10 minutes, I gave the tow company a call and said that he was parked in the fire lane and if they could come and remove his car. 20 minutes later, a tow truck rolled up, hooked his car up, and towed it off. About 15 minutes later, crappy neighbor came out and I could hear him start to yell back into his house, presumably at his wife. He then left and didn't come back until later that evening after he'd gotten his car. Now, it was funny to do this, and I made sure to send snaps to my roommates who don't work from home, but I wasn't done yet. See, this jackass apparently didn't learn the first time because literally the next day he parks in front of his garage again. What do? Well, the exact same thing as the day before, of course. Again, crappy neighbor comes out, realizes his car is gone, yells at his wife, and then goes to get it. Now, after this time, he is a bit smarter and parks in an actual spot before going in to get his lunch or whatever it is he does there midday. He does this for about 2 weeks before he decides that it's okay to park in front of his garage again. Well, who is still sitting at their desk every day and notices this immediately? Well, me, of course. And being the concerned resident that I am, I immediately call the tow company and off his car goes again. And again, this is met with yelling. I wish that this had a more satisfying ending, but after this third time I decided I would stop because I genuinely felt bad for his wife, who he seemed to do most of the yelling at, as if it was her fault that he was a dumbass. What I can tell you is that it has definitely cost him over $1,000. If he hadn't gotten my roommate's car towed then, we wouldn't have ever found that fun little rule. The best part was that a number of my neighbors would have their cars parked there at the same time, and they'd never have their cars towed, which made it all the better when his was. We have had a number of other encounters with him in the time since this happened, and I have another story that actually involves the Homeowners Association that I'll probably write later. That one is still ongoing though, so we'll see how it ends up. Here's an edit. By popular decision, I've decided that this story actually won't conclude with me stopping. I've had lots of advice about recording him yelling at his wife and trying to help that situation. I've also been told that I should figure out if he's using the Homeowners Association funds to pay off these bills. This one might be a bit harder to obtain since we're just renters, but I'll see what I can do. One thing to note is that he has no idea that it's me calling, and I'm trying to keep it that way. I will keep everyone updated with my progress and if anything new happens. Story number 2, too lazy to do your jobs? Well then, take care of the boxes. A bit of backstory. This was during my time I was working in retail. Every day my department would get pallets of merchandise that needed to be stocked, usually after my coworkers and I would leave for the day just before closing. I would work closing one week, opening shift the following week, and weekends off. During that time, we would have several groups of overnight coworkers. They were assigned to different departments to stock merchandise brought in on the delivery trucks, then to put any overstock in the back, and finally to clean up the cardboard boxes. The opening shift would take care of any overstock pallets the overnights didn't have time to get to. Every week, each group of overnight employees would be rotated to different departments. Unfortunately, there was one group of overnight employees that had a bit of a reputation for being lazy, and those guys were assigned to my department for the week. At the time when this happened, I was working my opening shift, years before COVID. The wrongs being done during the week wasn't so much being done to just me, it was being done to my other coworkers in my entire department, so this was pretty much a group effort. On with the story. My coworkers and I get to our department to find 4 pallets of merchandise, saran wrapped, labeled as overstock. We double check the pallets and the shelves and find out that it needed to be worked. We were pissed. By that time, the department manager and supervisor found out and they were absolutely livid. So we ended up working the merchandise, putting them on the shelves. I was getting ready to start breaking down the boxes when I got this wicked idea. My idea was to stack all of the empty boxes like they were full, wrap them up and label them as overstock, but I wanted to get the approval from my supervisor first. When I talked to my supervisor, I mentioned what I wanted to do. My supervisor chuckled at the idea, approved it, and explained what had happened to him last year. Apparently, a year before, the overnight employees played a prank on him. On April 1st, they had left 2 pallets of merchandise wrapped up and labeled as overstock. He said he double-checked only to find out that all of the boxes on the pallets were empty. He gathered all of us in the department, explained what we were doing, and we got to work. The supervisor explained that if it should happen again, we should inform him, work the merchandise, restock the empty boxes as if they were full, wrap them, label them as overstock, and leave the pallets for the overnighters. Unfortunately, my opening coworkers and I were done for the day. We were at 2 pallets. Fortunately, our closing coworkers were there when the supervisor explained what he wanted done. The next day, we walked in, more pallets of overstock merchandise. Supervisor was informed, basically rinse and repeat for the rest of the week. The last day of the week, however, we walked in. To our surprise, there was only 1 pallet. It had 7 pallets stacked on top of it with a handwritten "Go flip yourself" label on it. We informed the supervisor. He informed us that the overnight group assigned to our department were terminated by the store manager. This is John from /bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more of them, then hit that subscribe button. We would love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.